Hi, second graders. Welcome back to your TV classroom. Today is Monday, February 22nd. I hope you had a great weekend. I had a wonderful weekend with my family and with Oliver. We did lots of playing, and he's really loving to dance. I'll have to show you guys a video of Oliver dancing. His idea of dancing is the music's on, and he spins in rhythm by stomping his feet and spinning, just spinning round and round and round, and does it to the rhythm of the music. So if it's slower, he spins slower. When it goes faster, he spins faster. And he loves it. And his favorite song right now is Eye of the Tiger. So that's what he asked for. And we play Eye of the Tiger, and he gets all excited, and he spins around and around and around. So I listened to Eye of the Tiger a lot this weekend. So I had a great weekend. Mr. Kevin, how was your weekend?
Fantastic. Well, we didn't have an Eye of the Tiger kind of weekend. But I think I'm a little in the yellow zone just because of a plumbing problem at home.
That stinks.
Yeah, it stinks. Yeah.
Bummer. Yeah, I'm sorry. Friends, how are you doing at home? Gus, how are you doing? Great.
Yeah.
Friends, don't forget to share with someone around you how you're feeling and ask someone else how they're feeling. That helps us practice empathy and show others that we care when we ask how they're feeling and we listen attentively and understand their feelings. Let's get going with Make It Monday. How could you make this number? What can you do? What are some ways to make the number 70? Let's see. Well, I could do 7 plus 7 plus 7 plus 7 plus 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, plus 7 plus 7 plus 7 plus 7 plus 7. That's 7 tens. Oh, that's 10 sevens. That would make 70. That's a lot of sevens, though. What's another way we could make 70? I'm going to, sorry, Mr. Kevin. Let's see.
Ooh.
Yeah?
2 35s.
That's right. 35 plus 35 makes 70. Oh, I've got one. 60 plus 10. That makes 70. Oh, Gus. 10, 20, 30. Gus is skip counting. 40, 50, 60, 70. Skip counting by tens. That's much easier than skip counting by sevens.
Ooh, yeah.
If you can think of another way to make the number 70, please send it to us at the TV classroom. Mr. Kevin will tell you how at the end. Today, we are learning to add 3-digit numbers together. Whew. Are you ready for this? I'm going to get out my base 10 blocks. Now, if you don't have base 10 blocks at home, that's okay. You can do our base 10 block drawings and follow along with me, but I'm going to build it with the base 10 blocks so you can see it, because I know most of you don't have them at home. So it says, use base 10 blocks to show each number. Okay, Mr. Kevin, can you show my whiteboard? All right, I'm going to organize my base 10 blocks into hundreds, tens, and ones because that makes it easier. And I'm going to leave the ones in the bag because they fly everywhere, and that's no good. Okay, so I've got my hundreds right here, and you can't see them because PowerPoint's covering it, but that's fine. So I'm going to make the number 214. So I go back to looking at the place value and thinking about the value of each digit. The 2 in this number stands for what? 200s. 200s. Though digit 1 stands for what? 110. You should be drawing this on your whiteboard or building it with base 10 blocks. And then the 4 in this digit of 4 in that place value stands for what? 4 ones. 1, 2, 3, 4. So I've got 214. Ta-da! Now I'm going to make the number 135. You go ahead and draw or build, and then I'm going to give you about 20 seconds. 135. 100, 3 tens or 30, 5 ones. 135. Ta-da! Now, let's read this question. Mr. Kevin, can we just have this one big? And then we'll go back to that view in a minute. There are 214 fish in the giant tank at an aquarium. We're going to do a 3-read. So right now, you're just thinking, what's happening here? What's the story? There are 131 other sea animals in the tank. So there are how many animals live in the giant tank? So what's happening? We have a tank, and it has what? Fish and other sea animals. Okay, let's read again and find our question. There are 214 fish in the giant tank in an aquarium. There are 131 other sea animals in the tank. How many animals live in the giant tank? What's our question? Yeah, we're trying to figure out how many animals live in the giant tank. Okay. Let's find the information we have to work with. There are 214 fish in the giant tank at an aquarium. There are 131 other sea animals in the tank. So what's happening here? What information do we have? There's 214 fish and 131 other sea animals. What's a model or a bar model you could draw to represent this problem? We're not solving right now. We're not writing the equation. I want you to model this problem. And I'm going to do it here. And let's see if our models match. Whoops, wrong color. Whoop. Okay. Take a look at my model. Does it look similar to yours or does it look different? Does your model represent the same thing mine does? That I've got a part of 214 fish and a part of 131 other animals, and I'm trying to figure out how many it is, how many animals there are altogether. What equation could we write to solve this problem? An addition equation, right? 214. Oh, this touchscreen is being very finicky today. 214 plus 131 equals, we don't know. So now we have to solve. How are you going to solve this? What are you going to do? I'm going to give you 1 minute, and I want you to think of a strategy to solve this problem. Okay? Go ahead, think of a strategy and use it. I'm going to think of a strategy and use it. And then we're going to compare our strategies. Go ahead. Okay, Mr. Kevin, can you show my board? All right, friends, take a look at my model and strategy for solving this problem. What did I do? What do you see? Can you see my thinking? Mr. Kevin, can you see my thinking? Can you tell what I did?
Yes, I believe I do.
What do you think I did?
Well, so I think you modeled each value with the blocks.
I did.
And then you added it all up.
I did. And I did the ones first because that's how I was taught to do it. But friends, you could do any place value first. Just know when you regroup, it can get tricky. Okay? So I did the ones first. So I got 4 ones and 5 ones equals 5 ones. And then I got 1 10 and 3 10s equals 4 10s, which is 40. And then I got 200s and 100s, which is 300. And I added them all up and I got 345. But then I noticed something, and I wonder if any of you are noticing this. Watch. 4 ones and 1 1 equals 5 ones. 1 10 and 3 10s equals 4 10s. 200s and 100 equals 300s. And then that makes the expanded form. Isn't that so cool? It's like it's all connected, because it is. How does your model match my model, friends? Did you get the same answer as me? You should have. It says, look back. How many animals live in the giant tank? Okay, how many animals did we figure out live in the giant tank? Yeah, 345 animals. We figured that out because we took the place value and we added each place value together, and then we put all of those values together to find the total number. We have 5 ones, 4 10s, 300s. That means we're adding 345, which makes the number 345. So we know there are 345 animals. It's pretty cool. Let's take a look ahead at what we're going to be doing during the rest of this session of lessons. So you can also show jumps, excuse my reading, on an open number line to add 3-digit numbers. So we use place value in the blocks, but we can do it on a number line. Really? Let's see. It says, what is 248 plus 143? Write the missing numbers on the open number line to find the sum. Okay, Gus, can you help me? Okay, so I'm going to get my ink color purple so we can see it really well. Okay, so I'm looking at this number line and I know that my equation is this. So I'm going to put a box around it so I don't lose it. So we're starting at 248 and I'm going to add on 143. Now they're taking this big jump first. I'm guessing that's the 100. Let's see, 248, 348. What number changed? The hundreds. So they added 100. And then 348 to 388, well, that's 40. So they added 40. And then they're adding 3, and I have to figure it out. So what's 388 plus 3? Well, 388 plus 2 is 390, and 1 more makes 391. Do you know what I love about this one? I don't have to deal with that whole regrouping and carrying thing and losing track of a 10 and forgetting to do it, because it automatically happens when I counted and added 3 to 8. I went 88, 89, 90, 91. And it automatically groups that 10 and gives me the next one. Isn't that great? So if adding with regrouping is really hard for you, it is for lots of students, start with this open number line and you'll get used to it and it'll make it easier. Do you always have to add hundreds, then tens, then ones? Looking at this number line, do you always have to do the hundreds, the tens, and then the ones? Private think time. Why or why not? Pebble, what are you thinking? Pebble says yes, because that way you do your biggest jump first and you get that done and over with. Okay, so that's your preference, Pebble. You prefer to do the hundreds, the tens, and then the ones on an open number line. But do you always have to do the hundreds and the tens and then the ones on an open number line? What do you think, Mr. Kevin? Do we have to always do the hundreds and the tens and the ones on an open number line?
Well, the hundreds is the biggest, right? So if you have hundreds to move on the number line, then it would make sense to do the hundreds first, because then you'd be doing 248, 258, 268, 278, 288, 298, and so on, right? Did I make sense?
Yeah. I agree that's probably the most efficient, but I don't think you have to do it. Like if I was at, let's say it was 142, for example, and I'm at 248, I automatically know, well, I can just get to 250 by adding that 2 right away, right? And I've already done the 2. And then I can do my 100, and that would be 350. And then I can just do my 40, which is going to be 390. So I kind of did it all out of order based on what numbers I was seeing on my number line. Mm-hmm. So you don't have to do it in that order because you can add in whatever order you want. You'll get the same answer. What's important is that you look at the numbers you have and you say, what makes the most sense for this problem, right? If I'm going to be adding to a 10 and I can do that right away, it's easier to skip count on a 10 than it is to skip count on 248. It just is easier to skip count on a 250. So think about the numbers you see. Think about if it's going to make a 10 or not, and decide which ones you're going to do first. You will get the same answer, so you don't have to, but most of the time it's the easiest way to do it. So friends, let's take a look at our assignment for today. You're going to talk about sum, which is what? What's the sum? The total of an addition problem. You're going to talk about what that is and what it looks like and give me examples. And you're going to practice a few of these problems. I would like you to do one problem with a place value block drawing and one problem with an open number line. Okay? So page 393 and 394 in your math workbook. Today we learned to add 3-digit numbers together. We identified the value of each digit. We used a strategy to add the values together. We found the sum and we talked about our thinking and identified it. Mr. Kevin, can you tell them how to send us information here at the TV Classroom?
You bet. Students, the teachers would love to answer your questions. And if you want to send us an email to do that, you send it to tvclassroom@tacoma.k12.wa.us. You can also mail us something like, what if you wanted to draw one of your problems out?
Oh, I would love it. I'd love to see place value drawings.
That would be awesome.
It would be awesome.
Send them, and we'll send you stuff back.
Yeah.
Goodies.
Absolutely. All right. Thank you, Mr. Kevin.
You bet.
So friends, now is going to be your time for your break. You are going to have your lesson with Miss Oslin after your break. Please make sure you have your ELA packet, your learning notebook, your pencil, and your learning buddy, and be ready to learn with her when she comes back. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I will see you next time. Bye.
Hello, I'm Gretchen. I'm a cellist in Northwest Sinfonietta Orchestra, and I'm a cellist out of Northwest Sinfonietta Orchestra too, in which case I'm actually mostly playing on an electric cello. I'll talk more about that maybe at another time. I'm wondering who among you play instruments and who listens to instrumental music? I hope you listen to instrumental music because it does something different to our brains. Even though I also love listening to music with words too. And I'm going to play a song that is an instrumental version of a song with words called Pure Imagination. You don't have to know it. It's from the 1971 film Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. That's a song that I play in the band that I'm in. I'm in a band with a couple other members of Northwest Sinfonietta. Anna Doak on double bass and Brandon Vance on violin. And then we have a percussionist, Don Dietrich, who completes our band, which is called Different Drummer. You'll see in the video that will show that Don plays alternative percussion. He built a desk that he uses for all of his sounds, and it includes an old-fashioned manual typewriter and a trash can and suitcase and all kinds of things. And we all helped find some parts of that desk. And I wonder if you start looking around your home, if you might find some things that make interesting percussive sounds. At one point, looking for things, I was looking for things that could be shaken. So this is a container of granola, and I found this cooling tray that made a great ring, and pots and pans are good. I did take a cooking class where the teacher said not to tap on the side of a pan because she said that was mean to the food. But I think that if it's percussive and rhythmic, I think it's okay. So, sorry to grown-ups, but it's fun to make some sounds. So, in the video that you're going to see of our band, we're playing a piece that Anna wrote called Mischief. And each of us represents a family member in this musical depiction, and the piece is a scene from family life. So you can imagine who is who and what we're doing using your imagination. I hope that you enjoy.
Hi, second graders. Welcome back from your break. I see that you have your ELA packet, your pencil, your reading notebook, and your Learning Buddy. You can go ahead and keep your Learning Buddy with you if they are going to help you focus, and you can just put everything else off to the side. Now, let's remind ourselves, we had some questions that we were asking ourselves in order to find a really good independent workspace. We made sure that the seat was comfortable, that it's not too small or too big. We made sure that the atmosphere was good, that it's dry and it's not too warm or too cold. We made sure that it was quiet, or if you are someone who needs background noise, maybe it's not quiet. This is where you need to think about you as a learner and what works best for you. How do you concentrate best? Also, is it an area where you won't be interrupted frequently, where you can sit down, be efficient with your time, and get your work done? Is there proper lighting so that you can see? Can you see your books? Can you see your materials so that you are able to get your work done? It might look like one of these spaces. Now, I have my workspace here. I have my materials. I have my Learning Buddy. So I am ready to go. Today we are learning that readers read and discuss books with others to learn and grow as a reader. And during our reading workshop, this time when we come together, this is a great time to practice. And then when you go off to do your independent learning, you can find someone, maybe it's your Learning Buddy, to, after you've read, to talk about the books so that you learn and grow as a reader. This is something that I do as a reader all the time. I talk to my mom. We enjoy very similar books. So I'll call her and say, hey, I just finished this book. This is why I like it. This is why I think you will like it. You should read it. And then she'll read it, and then we'll have a conversation about what we thought about the characters or the message. And it helps she and I learn and grow as readers. And this is something that you can also do as a reader. And we're going to do this today, reading A Story for Bear by Dennis Hasley and illustrated by Jim LaMarche. And we're going to read, this is a really magical story. And this book is about a bear who experiences the joy of reading with a very special friend. And as we do that, I want you thinking, do you like to read by yourself, or do you like to read with someone? Is there someone who reads with you often? Take some think time. Turn and tell your Learning Buddy who you like to read with. Mr. Kevin?
I don't think I'd like to read with a bear unless he was very sleepy.
Yeah.
And had just eaten.
Or is just eaten, yeah. Unless the bear is content, I wouldn't want to read with a bear. No. Gus, I like to read with Max and Charlie. We get snuggled on our couch, and we like to read all different types of books. But I like reading with someone because I learn from them, and I get to hear about their perspective and what they are thinking about the books that we read. But definitely not with a bear. Okay, let's read this book to find out who Bear's special friend is and how they come together to form a reading community. Hey, much like we are doing now, we're coming together as a classroom to read. That makes this our reading community. And while we're reading, we're going to stop and think about our own personal experiences as readers and how they relate to Bear's. And we can also become a part of Bear's reading community. Now, just looking at that front cover, it looks like Bear is listening to a person reading a story. I wonder if Bear is learning to read. Let's find out. I can see part of the words. I'm going to read this. It looks like it's a handwritten letter, but it's covered by leaves, so I can't read all of it. Dear Eliza, your father and I have been cheered by your letter. We picture you often living near the woods where we summered. I remember days of berry picking and golden light shining through tall trees. wonder if that gives us a little bit of background information about our character. One day, a young bear was nosing through bushes when he saw something lying on the ground. He looked at it with curiosity. He sniffed at its tiny marks. Then the bear took it in his teeth and brought it back to his cave. Through the years, the bear looked at the paper with wonder. It seemed as far away and mysterious as the moon. I think the bear found that letter that we read. And I remember when I was learning to read, because Bear is trying to read this letter, sometimes the words seem just so hard. And have you ever felt like Bear? Like you're looking at words and they seem as far away as the moon because they're really hard to read? Think about that. Turn and tell your learning buddy what you're thinking. Gus, I remember, I think I was in 4th grade, and I remember sitting down to do, we called it silent sustained reading back then. It's independent reading. And I was reading this book, and it was supposed to be a book that I was able to read, and I just couldn't read it. So you know what I did? I skipped pages and I pretended like I read it, instead of asking for help because I was embarrassed. Okay, let's keep reading and see what Bear does to learn to read this letter. One summer afternoon, the bear ranged farther than usual from where he lived. He followed a scent until he came to a clearing, and there he saw several strange things all at once. There was a cabin and brightly colored laundry hanging on a line, and a woman. From behind a thick tree, he watched as the woman sat down and opened a mysterious square thing she was carrying. His nose tickled from the wonderful smells of the cabin, bacon and coffee and bread. But he gazed only at her, trying to understand what she was doing as she held the book. He felt calm as he watched her. When she closed the book, he ran away. Day after day, he returned. He managed to get closer to her and watched from behind a near tree, his thick bare head just peeking around. He had never seen anything like this. Sometimes, as she gazed at the book, she laughed out loud. Other times, she lowered it and looked away, but without really seeing anything, he thought. Still other times, she appeared afraid and held it tightly. And once, when the sun slanted through the trees, he saw her place the book gently on her lap and close her eyes. Later, she went into her cabin, and he lumbered slowly through the woods back to his cave. When he heard a blue jay call, he looked up quickly, because he thought for a moment it was the woman laughing. One afternoon, the woman was not in her yard. Slowly, his head moving from side to side, he walked toward her things. With one big paw, he knocked the book off the pile to land face down in the dirt. He pushed it with his nose and scratched at its brown cover with his claw, trying to turn it over. Finally, one of his claws caught under the cover and the book flipped over. Opened, the bear moved his nose forward. Then it closed again and his head snapped back. Once more he tried, and this time it stayed open. That's hard to do without thumbs. He took 2 lumbering steps toward it and put his big head close. There on the page were row after row of marks, tiny marks, like those on the piece of paper in his cave. He stared at them while his nose flicked with the scents of the paper, glue, ink, and her touch. He didn't see the woman walking up behind him. When he finally heard her, his head swung around. For a moment, their eyes locked. The bear pawed once more at the book, then turned and ran away. The next day, he saw the woman sitting in her chair, the book with the brown cover on her lap. She was looking into the trees, searching for something. When she finally saw him, she smiled. "Come here. Come here, bear." After a while, he moved out from the tree, and then slowly he took a few steps toward her, with his big head swaying from side to side. That's how we know this book is fiction, right? Because you would never want to call a bear over to you. When he grew near to her, but not so near that he couldn't run, he lay down and looked up at her. She waited a moment longer. Then she carefully opened the book and softly began to speak. "There once was a sailor," she read, "who had to travel for many years over the sea before he could return home." The bear gazed up at her as she said the words and turned the pages. He couldn't understand any of what she was saying, but as he listened to the sound of her voice, happiness washed over him like waves. He returned day after day all that summer. When she read in a fearful voice about the sailor getting lost, he felt afraid. When she laughed at how the sailor played tricks, the bear would feel strangely happy. When she read of his love, the bear looked up at the woman with wide eyes and watched as her gentle mouth formed the words. All the words she read made a story for her bear. Whenever she read, he felt the waves of mysterious feelings carried by her voice. Sometimes her voice was soothing and the bear grew peaceful, and sometimes she sounded excited or scared and his hair bristled and he gave a low growl. And sometimes her sounds were tender and he looked up at her and watched her fingers gently lifting a page and a page and a page. These feelings often stayed inside of him as he lumbered back to his world at the end of the day, and sometimes in the babbling of a brook, he would think he heard her again and become quite happy. Now, Bear isn't actually learning to read, but he sure does love these stories. And after he hears these stories, he wanders back to his cave, remembering the emotions in the woman's voice, and he continues to think about her, and he even kind of hears her voice still in his mind. Now, this makes me think about how when my mom used to cook breakfast, she would sometimes hum or sing, and then even after breakfast was over, I could still hear her singing or humming in my mind. Now, I like to, when I'm cooking, like yesterday, I cooked a zucchini lasagna and I had music going while I was cooking because I like to have my kids, I think I've talked about this before, I like to have my kids in the kitchen with me and we make it more fun by adding music. Can you think of something, an event or a ritual, something that you do every day that reminds you of another person, of something that they've said or done? Take some think time. Tell your partner, your learning buddy, all about that event and that person. Go ahead. Now, isn't it interesting how as readers, we're thinking about Bear and his experience, but it makes us remember events and people in our lives as well. And we can talk about those connections to grow as readers. Let's keep reading. One afternoon, when he returned to the cabin, there was a chill in the air. She put down her book, looked at the bear, and said, I wish you could read these stories when I'm away for the winter. Then she smiled at him, and the bear, seeing her smile, felt lightness in his heart, and she began to read aloud again. When next he came, he was carrying something in his mouth. It was the scrap of paper from his cave with its mysterious marks. He laid it by her book. Bear, she said. He knew by now that this was her word for him, and he lifted his head. Bear? Did you bring this for me? And then she read it in her gentle voice, as if it were a story he was giving her. Dear Eliza, Your father and I have been cheered by your letters. We picture you often living near the woods where we summered. I remember days of berry picking and golden light shining through tall trees. When the bear next returned, the leaves were changing color. When he reached the cabin, he saw what had changed there as well. She was not in her usual place waiting for him. The bear walked into her yard, taking a few steps and moving his big head from side to side. He walked this way up to where her chair had been. There, under the tree where she usually sat, were her books. There were many of them, more than he had ever seen, lying on a cloth, fallen leaves and pine cones on their covers. She had left them for him, along with a piece of paper, as if she'd wished he could read it. For my bear. He looked at what she'd left him. With his big head close, he understood that what she had done, as silence surrounded him. What did she do? Yeah, she left her books for him. Then tenderly as he could, he put his teeth around the book with the brown cover and carried it away. All that afternoon, he made the long journey from his winter cave to her yard and back again through the forest, carrying her books with their covers of green and red and black, their words of sailors and goddesses and far-off lands, while the stream whispered and the blue jays called. That night, as the moon rose like a white page with mysterious marks, he lay among the hard covers of her books. Finally, he slept. And while he slept, he heard her voice, gentle and near. She was telling him a tale of adventure and magic and love. And all that winter, before she came back in the spring, whenever he put his nose to the pages or touched the covers with his claws, she was there, reading to him. Now, Bear continues to hear the woman's voice and be comforted by her presence because she lives in the books and in the stories and the experience that they shared. Do you have an object, like a book, that reminds you of someone or a special time? Take some think time. Turn and tell your learning buddy what you're thinking. Gus, I'm thinking about the books, The Lord of the Rings, that when I was little, my dad read to me. So now whenever I think about those stories or I get to watch the movies, I think about my dad. Now, even though Bear didn't understand the words that the woman was reading, he understood the emotions and he felt really close to his new friend in his reading community. And they found that they have a community together, the woman and the bear, and they have shared experiences, and he grew to love the stories, even though he didn't really understand them. So now we are part of a reading community, you and I, and we're gonna come together into our workspace here in our TV classroom, and we're gonna set aside a special time every day to read and think and talk and feel about books, just like the bear and the woman. And when we do that, there are some expectations. You are going to have independent reading work. This is where you go off to your independent workspace and you read books that you love. You're going to make sure that you have books that are just right for you, which means you can read the words. But you can also have books where you enjoy the pictures or you enjoy the story that you make up as you read. And as you're reading, I want you thinking about, what are you thinking about? What do the books make you think or feel? What do they teach you? If you have someone around you, wherever you are, when you're doing your independent work, you could also practice reading with them. You could take turns reading a page here, you read a page, they read a page, practice talking about the books. And then you can always, even though our reading community won't actually come together, you can always write about what you're reading and send it to us here at TV Classroom, and we would love to send something back to you talking about what we are reading. Now, I want you to think about one of these expectations. Either you're independent reading, you're talking to someone about your reading, you're writing about your reading, or what you're going to do at home. And think about, what is a goal that you could set? Maybe reading for longer periods of time. Maybe reading one more page. Maybe asking your partner questions about what they are reading. You're going to set a goal, and that's what you're going to write about today in your reading notebook. And you're going to check in with that goal every day and remind yourself that you can do one more minute, or you can read one more page, or you can think about a question that you could ask someone about what they're reading, or you could practice retelling your story, talking about who the story is about, thinking about what the problem, what the solution is. How did it make you feel? Today we're learning that readers read and discuss books with others to learn and grow as a reader. And that might, even though we're remote, that might mean that our discussion happens in the form of letters. And if that's what it is, you can send us your letters here at our TV classroom. Mr. Kevin, how can they send us their letters?
Certainly. Well, if you need some help, you can ask an adult to help you. TV Classroom at tacoma.k12.wa.us, and that's email. You can also mail us at TV Classroom, 601 South 8th Street, Tacoma, Washington, 98405.
Thank you, Mr. Kevin. We look forward to getting your letters. Now, second graders, this is time for our affirmation. This is where we say positive things about ourselves before we go off to complete our independent work. And today, your affirmation is, I can reach my goals. Practice saying that out loud with me. I can reach my goals. Now you're going to go off, set a goal, and do your best to reach that goal today. Thank you so much for reading and thinking with me today. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I look forward to seeing you back here next time in our TV classroom. Bye.
Hey kids, we want to see your work. Just send your pictures and your stories to TV Classroom, 601 South 8th Street, Tacoma, Washington, 98405.